If you are over 60 and you have been dealing with constipation that just will not quit, no matter how much fiber you eat or how much water you drink, I want to share something with you today that most doctors never even mention. Subscribe to this channel for new health videos made specifically for you. There is one specific nutritional deficiency behind a huge number of constipation cases in older adults. And once you understand it, so much starts to make sense. This is not a fringe theory. Researchers publishing through the National Institutes of Health and Harvard Medical School have been documenting this exact connection for years, yet almost nobody talks about it at the doctor's office. Maybe you have already tried the usual advice: more fiber, more water, a fiber supplement or a probiotic. And maybe none of it really worked, or it worked for a week and then your body went right back to being stuck. If that sounds familiar, stay with me. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why your gut has slowed down, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it starting today. Let me start with something that might genuinely surprise you. You have more nerves living inside your gut than you have running through your entire spinal column. Your digestive system is essentially wired like a second brain, complete with its own network of nerve cells constantly sending and receiving signals. Connecting that second brain to your first brain is a long nerve called the vagus nerve. It runs directly between your brain and your gut, and it is bidirectional, meaning messages travel both up and down that highway constantly, day and night. Here is why this becomes critical once you cross into your 60s. As we age, our bodies quietly become less efficient at absorbing certain nutrients. Stomach acid naturally starts to decline. Our diets often shift towards softer, easier foods that are gentler on aging teeth, but far lower in the nutrients our nervous system depends on. That combination slowly and silently sets the stage for a deficiency that almost nobody sees coming, because it does not show up the way people expect a vitamin problem to look. No dramatic bruising, no obvious rash, no textbook warning sign. Instead, it shows up quietly as your gut simply refusing to move the way it used to, month after month, until feeling uncomfortable feels completely normal. The vagus nerve connects into the lower part of your brain, called the brain stem. And inside that brain stem sits the control center of something called the autonomic nervous system, a system that runs on autopilot, controlling your heartbeat, your breathing, and your digestion, all without you ever having to think about it. Most people know about two parts of that system: the sympathetic that revs you up, and the parasympathetic that calms you down. But there is a third, lesser-known part called the enteric nervous system. It is often called the second brain, because it is made entirely of nerve tissue lining your gut from top to bottom, capable of operating almost independently of your actual brain. Here is the part almost nobody explains clearly. That brainstem and the entire autonomic nervous system built around it is extremely vulnerable to a deficiency in one specific nutrient: thiamine, vitamin B1. When you do not have enough thiamine circulating through your body, things start going wrong in that autonomic system, especially anything tied to nerve signaling, including the very nerves that control the smooth muscle lining your gut. And that smooth muscle is responsible for something called peristalsis, the slow, rhythmic, wave-like squeezing motion that pushes waste steadily through your body. Take a moment and think about what constipation actually is at its core. It is not simply a lack of fiber, it is a failure of peristalsis. The muscle itself simply is not pumping the way it should anymore. So everything just sits there, going nowhere, no matter how much water or fiber you add on top. There is a severe form of thiamine deficiency called gastrointestinal beriberi. It directly blocks peristalsis altogether. The intestines essentially stop pumping completely. This happens because thiamine is missing where it matters most, in the brainstem, which acts as command central for every nerve signal traveling down toward your gut. Without enough B1, the vagus nerve can no longer properly use a chemical messenger called acetylcholine, the signal that tells your gut muscles to contract and move things along. And acetylcholine absolutely depends on vitamin B1 to be produced and used correctly. So when you step back and look at the full picture, nerve signaling stomach acid production, gastric motility, and gut muscle function, the common thread running through every one of these digestive breakdowns is a lack of thiamine. That is why chasing symptom after symptom with a different supplement for each one might be missing the actual root cause hiding underneath all of it. A thiamine deficiency does not just slow down peristalsis. It also directly suppresses hydrochloric acid production in your stomach, the very acid your body needs to properly break down protein. Undigested protein sitting in your gut can on its own contribute to constipation and bloating. That same stomach acid is also essential for killing off unwanted microbes before they travel further down your digestive tract. When that acid runs too low, you become far more vulnerable to something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, a frustrating condition where bacteria that should stay confined to your large intestine start creeping upward into your small intestine instead, causing gas, bloating, and more constipation. Low thiamine also quietly slows gastric motility, the movement of your stomach itself. A more advanced version of this slowdown is called gastroparesis, where digestion becomes painfully sluggish throughout the entire system, sometimes leaving people feeling uncomfortably full for hours after even a small meal. Gastroparesis is frequently linked to diabetes, and diabetes itself is driven largely by high sugar and refined carbohydrate intake, the exact same foods that quietly deplete thiamine levels in the first place. Follow this chain closely because it matters. You eat a lot of refined carbohydrates. That raises your risk of developing diabetes. Diabetes creates a thiamine deficiency, and that deficiency leads straight into gastroparesis and a cascade of other digestive problems that ripple outward from there. This is also part of why so many people with diabetes eventually develop peripheral neuropathy, that numb, burning, painful sensation in the feet. Because thiamine deficiency damages nerves at multiple levels throughout the entire body, not only in the gut. Now here is the important question. Why are so many people over 60 running low on thiamine in the first place? It is not usually because they are eating some bizarre restrictive diet. It is much sneakier than that. Several very common everyday things quietly drain thiamine out of the body as we get older. First, certain blood pressure medications. Diuretics, which are extremely common after 50, cause the body to flush out extra fluid. And unfortunately, water-soluble vitamins like thiamine get flushed right along with it. Second, metformin. One of the most widely prescribed medications for managing blood sugar has been shown in research to interfere with thiamine absorption over time. Third eye, alcohol. Even moderate occasional drinking significantly impairs the body's ability to absorb and properly use thiamine. And fourth, simply getting older. Natural aging reduces the efficiency of nutrient absorption happening inside your gut lining itself. So even someone eating a reasonably healthy diet can still end up running low purely because their body is not pulling nutrients out of food as effectively as it did in their 30s or 40s. Layer any one of these factors, a diuretic, a blood sugar medication, an occasional glass of wine, or simply the natural slowdown of aging, on top of a diet already leaning toward refined carbohydrates, and you have the perfect quiet setup for exactly the kind of thiamine deficiency we have been talking about. Once you see it laid out this way, it stops feeling like some rare, unusual problem and starts looking like something that could very easily be happening to millions of people right now, without a single one of them realizing it. Now let us talk about what you can actually do. Food sources matter far more than most people think. Nutritional yeast, sunflower seeds, pork, lentils, black beans, peas, and whole grains like brown rice all naturally contain meaningful amounts of thiamine. Pairing these foods with a source of magnesium tends to work particularly well since magnesium helps activate thiamine inside your cells. Something as simple as sunflower seeds paired with a handful of pumpkin seeds or lentils cooked alongside leafy greens can be a genuinely smart combination to build into your week. One of the biggest mistakes people make is relying entirely on heavily processed multivitamins that use cheap, synthetic, poorly absorbed forms of B1 thinking they are covering their bases when in reality, their body barely absorbs any meaningful amount. Another common mistake is assuming that piling on more fiber alone will fix sluggish digestion. Adding fiber on top of already impaired nerve signaling can sometimes make bloating and discomfort noticeably worse instead of better, because the underlying muscle still is not getting the signal to move. When choosing a thiamine source, whether through food or a supplement, look for natural whole food derived options rather than synthetic lab manufactured versions. Your body tends to recognize and utilize natural thiamine far more efficiently. Thiamine is a water-soluble vitamin, which means your body does not store large reserves of it, the way it does with vitamin D or B12. A steady daily intake through food, and if needed a quality natural supplement, tends to be far more effective than sporadic occasional large doses. Many people find that taking their thiamine earlier in the day alongside a meal helps meaningfully with both absorption and how efficiently the body puts it to use throughout the rest of the day. This is not something that happens overnight. And I want to be honest about that. Patience is part of the process. But many people do start noticing gradual improvements in regularity within just a few weeks once their intake becomes truly consistent. Who tends to benefit most from paying closer attention to thiamine? If you regularly eat a lot of white bread, white rice, pasta, or packaged snack foods, you are in this group. If you are currently taking a diuretic or metformin, you are in this group. If you enjoy even moderate alcohol on a regular basis, you are in this group. If you have simply noticed your digestion has slowed down gradually over the past several years without any other obvious explanation, you are very likely in this group. Now, a few important warnings before you go. People with certain kidney conditions or those taking specific prescription medications should always check with their doctor before making significant changes to their supplement routine. Bam! And if you ever experience severe abdominal pain, blood in your stool, sudden major changes in your bowel habits, or unexplained weight loss, please do not try to self-treat. Get that checked by a medical professional right away. Those symptoms can sometimes point to something more serious that needs proper immediate attention. Let me bring everything together. Constipation after 60 is not simply about needing more fiber or drinking more water. Very often it is your nervous system quietly struggling underneath the surface because of a thiamine deficiency that has been slowly building for years without anyone connecting the dots. The vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system, the deep relationship between vitamin B1 and your entire digestive process, from your stomach acid all the way down to your gallbladder and pancreas. These are the pieces that give you a real starting point for addressing the root cause instead of endlessly managing symptoms one supplement at a time. The foods to focus on starting this week: nutritional yeast, sunflower seeds, lentils, black beans, peas, brown rice. Pair them with magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds and leafy greens for best results. Reduce refined carbohydrates, white bread, white rice, pasta, packaged snacks. These are the foods that deplete thiamine while simultaneously raising your risk of the very conditions that make the deficiency worse. And if you take a diuretic or metformin, have a specific conversation with your doctor about your thiamine levels. That 2-minute conversation could explain years of digestive discomfort. This is not a miracle cure. It is a well-documented, science-backed piece of a puzzle that far too many people never get the chance to hear about from their own doctor. Please subscribe to this channel. I post new videos to help you stay healthy. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself.